Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to St. Paul's Church National Historic Site, Mount Vernon, New York. I'm David Osborne, the site manager, and another episode of History from St. Paul's. Today in the historic cemetery, standing in front of this large granite monument, 4 tons, to a woman of distinction, Mary E. Gedney, who lived from 1860 to 1910. The monument actually reflects Mary's great achievement in an area that women could achieve success and results in her time, late 19th, early 20th century, voluntary organizations, women's clubs, and the projects they undertook. She also achieved success in an area where women were less likely to thrive in her day, residential real estate. So Mary's born in 1860, town of Westchester, a little bit south of St. Paul's here. Very importantly, her father was the town tax assessor. So he's the person responsible for setting tax rates, hearing appeals, traveling around and determining value of property, involved in sometimes sales of confiscated properties. And Mary is his protege. At a time when women are, rarely going to college or vocational or trade school, when women achieve success in business, a pattern like this, a family member, as a tutor or mentor, is usually a common entree into business success. So for Mary, formal schooling ended at 14, but by then she'd already accompanied her father enough that we see by her late teens she's already buying and selling property, doubtless under her father's direction. Her real estate enterprise is greatly expanded through marriage to her first husband, a man named Leonard Tice, who actually was a captain of a Vermont regiment in the Civil War, moved to Mount Vernon after the war. He himself had established a real estate and insurance enterprise, and the commingling and joining of Mary's, beginning of a business and his created a substantial real estate business here in the area. Leonard Tice is also a locally prominent man. He's active in Democratic politics. He's a Mason, county coroner, and also Justice of the Peace. So between the two of them, they cultivated a circle of acquaintances and friends that would have greatly expanded the business enterprises of both of them. Mary had 3 girls through that marriage to Leonard Tice. She suffered what must have been the emotionally wrenching experiences of burying her 2 little girls on the same day in 1890, buried right over here to my right, Stella and Gertrude. One of them had lived just a few months. Another made it to about 4.5. They're both buried on the same day in 1890. Records don't reveal cause of death, but at that time, early childhood death, you're talking pneumonia, tuberculosis, diphtheria, likely causes. Leonard himself passed away in 1893 of a kidney ailment. And after a period of mourning and grief, understandably, Mary resumed her business practices, and she established then for many years a substantial real estate practice with an office here in Mount Vernon and south of here in what is today the Bronx, Williamsbridge. Her business success is maybe not as surprising as people think. There's the family tutelage, but in her day, women owning businesses, there are some studies that say maybe 1/4 of the businesses in some New York towns were owned and operated by women. In the narrow construct of the day, if the home is a woman's sphere, cultivating it, shaping it, molding it, businesses that in some way had to do with the home could be owned by women with some frequency. 1/4 of the businesses, cooking, cleaning. In Mary's case, residential real estate. She's working at a time when in middle class or wealthier families, the woman, if she is the nurturer and protector and developer of the home, she's often the chooser of the home. So at that time, women are often the ones shopping around for the house, the right location, the right style, the right number of rooms. So residential real estate would have fit that pattern. She is dealing with a female clientele. From what I could tell, Mary's 2 offices are staffed by all women. She is the businesswoman and the proprietor. She deals with the more important real estate transactions. She has agents working for her. So in that regard, she does fit a pattern of when women are owning businesses, it usually had something to do with the domestic world. Mary's real mark on the public landscape here in this area, and in some cases nationally, comes through another area. It comes through voluntary women's organizations. So these are greatly expanding at this time, the 1890s, early 20th century, where before the 19th Amendment, before women's suffrage. So in terms of participating and helping to shape society, these organizations were more and more becoming a vehicle for women to be active. They had an internal coherence, the friendship and the camaraderie established by the women in these clubs. And externally, more and more of these clubs are sponsoring, through fundraising and lobbying and activity, improvements in education, public health, very active in trying to arrest child labor. They also sponsor various patriotic and heritage initiatives. This is where Mary really shines. She's a member of at least, I could see 8 to 10, maybe more of these organizations in the area. And because of her business success, this is a woman with administrative, entrepreneurial, and management skills that probably exceeded most of her colleagues because of her successful business career. So it shouldn't be too surprising that in these organizations that she joins or helps establish, she's quickly the vice president or the president. She did have skills probably beyond most of her colleagues. And that's where the monument comes in. Mary was the president of the Auxiliary of the United Spanish War Veterans. She did have, by the way, one daughter survive the first marriage. She gets married again to a man named George Gedney and becomes Mary Gedney. Her third name. Hyde is her maiden name. Tice is her first married name. Gedney is what she's buried under. But she has a nephew named Isaac Hyde, who was a soldier in the Spanish-American War, 1898. And they established home front support groups, including a lodge or a camp in Mount Vernon. Mary, not surprisingly, becomes a member and very quickly the leader. And from that, she has her entree into veteran circles. After the Spanish-American War, a lot of smaller veterans organizations established by the veterans of the Spanish War. In 1905, they merged and become the United Spanish War Veterans. And at their first national convention, it's actually in Buffalo, 1905, they established the Veterans Organization, an auxiliary. An auxiliary would be in their day, sometimes terminology today, they were called ladies' auxiliaries. These would be female organizations in support of male-dominated organizations. They're pretty common at the time. Many labor unions, with all the strikes in the 1890s, do have auxiliaries. So then when the men are out on strike, there's an auxiliary providing food and support. And similarly, veterans organizations would establish these auxiliaries. Mary is very well known in these circles. Her prominence and her competence, is widely recognized. So at the National Convention of the United Spanish War Veterans, she is designated as the first president of the auxiliary. The next year is probably the highlight of her public career. It's 1906, Second National Convention, United Spanish War Veterans in Washington, D.C., a multiple day, well-choreographed, well-attended national convention. Mary is re-elected president. It included a trip to the White House and an audience with President Roosevelt. So Mary would have met TR. And in the coverage in the local paper, Mount Vernon had a daily then, the Daily Argus, you could really see the local pride in a woman who's well regarded in the community, a business leader, and very active in successful volunteer organizations. They all met her off from the station, the big wave goodbye as the train departed for Washington. The coverage in the local paper is very prominent and very positive. That is probably the highlight of her public life, 1906. Death comes, surprisingly, 4 years later, 1910. Seemingly healthy, keeping up her voluntary lodge commitments in the clubs, running the 2 real estate offices with a good degree of success. She is taken down by what was called at the time sometimes the captain of death, pneumonia. Stricken on a trip to New York City. She comes back to Mount Vernon. The care is attempted at Mount Vernon Hospital, unsuccessful. She dies in October 1910. She's 50. Leaves quite a gap in the businesses and also in the voluntary organizations where she had been the leader of many of them. And that's where this monument comes in. Mary is by then past president, but she is, a national figure in veterans organizations. She does have a military funeral. There would have been a military procession here. They do blow taps at her funeral. And then a few months later comes this huge monument. This doesn't come right after a funeral. Something like this takes months to assemble and plan. This is a 4-ton monument, and it would be sitting on a base of probably 6 feet of rocks and boulders to hold up all this weight more than 110 years. But it is the monument supplied by the United Spanish War veterans to their original president. And it has 3 tiers. It would have been brought in here on horse-drawn carts in 3 separate tiers, 1, 2, 3. Masons would have assembled it with little lead squares in between the components to bond them. And we do see all the different components of granite finish on tombstones. On the bottom, this is usually called rock ledge. It looks like a rock that would blend in with the field as if it's in a natural setting. It's manufactured, but that's the appearance they're trying to create. And over here we have what's usually called granite polish. This is a high-end level of industrial burnishing to create that smooth finish. And most of it is what we usually call steel plate. It does have in the middle here on a cross and a shield and a wreath, the United Spanish War Veterans Auxiliary emblem. Hard to see, okay, but a soldier and a sailor and a woman in between. This is a burial pall draped over the monument. And it's been here ever since, I think it was put here in 1911. So if she dies in 1910, something like this takes a little while to plan. So that's our story of Mary E. Gedney, a woman of distinction, buried here in the historic cemetery at St. Paul's. Tune in next time for another episode of History from St. Paul's, and happy holiday to all.